Nothing happens in any business until someone sells something.
Yes.
Pick up the phone, 10 calls before 10, right? It's a real estate thing as well, but you're only as good as your last sale. There's a lot to be learnt in those moments where you don't get the sale. My whole sales philosophy was really coming from my real estate time, and it's you've got to know me before you need me, and you've got to like me before you'll trust me. And the sale comes at the trust. It's not what you say and it's not what you do, it's how you make people feel that they remember.
You're listening to Beyond Growth with Rayan Fernando.
All right, Leanne, welcome. It's great to have you on the podcast, and really excited to find out your take on sales, especially in that tech space as well. 20 years in tech for myself, so I know how difficult it was. So really, really excited, and thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Excellent. So just to kick off, obviously you're in that sort of tech sales space at the moment, but that's not where your career started. So
no, certainly was not.
No, and I guess I've known you in a different iteration of yourself, and so tell me a little bit about how it all began in sales in general.
Lovely, thank you. Actually, not many people know this. It's quite a funny story. I was in primary school, and you went out on a school excursion, and Mum came along, and we were at the Queen Victoria Markets, and I think I was about 12 or 13 at the time, and the challenge for that excursion was that we had $10 and you had to go and buy fruit and veg and everything at the market and come back at the end of the day and see who got the best value or the most goods, I guess, from that $10. And what was funny was I went, and I would stand there as this sweet little innocent girl at the, strawberry stand and just smile, and the guy would go, "Oh, aren't you gorgeous? Here you go, you can have these." Yeah. And so I started,
I see where this is heading.
So I started getting free stuff, right? The merchants at the market would go, "How are you today?" And I'd have a chat with them and talk about, just what I was doing here on a school excursion. And they go, "Oh, here's an apple," or "Take a banana," or whatever. So I kind of ended the day still with my $10, but a bag full of goodies. And what was quite funny, as we're all gathering back together, there were some kids kicking a football, and they'd kicked the football in the tree, and they couldn't quite reach it. And I looked at my mum, who was a parent helper at the time, and I said, "Oh, I can climb up and get it." And because Mum was there, school supervision, she allowed me to go up. So I scuttled up this tree and knocked the football out for this kid and the family. And the mum came up to me. She goes, "Oh, thank you so much." And gave me $5. So at the end of this school excursion, I had a bag full of food. And I'd made $5, right? I walked away still with $15. And the teacher at the time was just laughing and looked at Mum and said, "Oh God, she's going to be great in sales." And that was kind of the seed, I guess, at 12 or 13, that was in my head about maybe sales is something I could do. And then, at 16, I got a job, with a friend of mine who was already working there at Hungry Jack's down in Geelong. And, that was a great experience as well. I think from any sales perspective, the customer's always right. Customer's always first, gets drilled into you at McDonald's, Hungry Jack's and those kind of places. So that was a really great sort of foundation training, I guess, as a young girl. At 16, working with adults and customers and serving them, and that's where my passion for service, I guess, really came from in hospitality. But what was funny at Hungry Jack's was they put me on drive-thru, and everyone who's been through drive-thru knows you want to get in and out really quickly, and behind the scenes there's stats and numbers and timers and things like that to get the cars in and out within a certain period of time. And I didn't realise, but over the 6 months I was there and on drive-thru, we had the worst drive-thru record in the country. It was so bad. It was so bad. It was the longest drive-thru ever. And I didn't realise, but this one particular day, the regional state manager or whatever came down, as they do, to do their inspections on the outlets, and was standing outside by the dumpster bin where, your cars pull in and they'd get me on the welcome to Hungry Jack's. Can I take your order, please? And, someone would go, oh, hi, can I have, 6 cheeseburgers? And blah. Is that you, Fred? How are you? And he goes, Leanne, I'm really well. Have you just finished soccer? Yeah, got the kids in the car. Come on through, man, whatever. So I'd take the order. They'd come to the first window and I'd be, hi, kids, how you going? How was soccer? Because with fast food, you get your regulars that come in after school, between 4 and 6 on a Wednesday or whatever. And they're all shuttling kids to sports and what have you. And over time, you obviously get to know people in the car and the voice on the headset as well. So then I'd stand there and have a chat and go, how'd you go, kids? Did you win today? Like, here's a sticker or blah, blah, blah. And they'd go through, get their order and off they'd go. And at the end of the shift, it was quite funny because the guy came in and my boss pulled me aside and said, this is what we've actually done today. And he looked at me and he goes, I came out down here to tell you guys off for your terrible time on drive-thru. He goes, but I can't fault you. He goes, everyone that came through, you gave amazing service to. And so we kind of let it slide. I think that we had the worst drive-thru record in the country. So, but that was great. And, he kind of said to me, he goes, you know what, we can all live by these rules and times and, KPIs and what have you. He goes, but, I was so impressed. I've heard a lot of people on drive-thru over my years, and he goes, you are incredible with your customer, relationships and that you knew everyone, right? And so that was lovely. And I think, moving from Hungry Jack's into a 5-star restaurant, which took me to Melbourne to 5-star hotels, it was really that service-based approach to sales, in everything that I do is, the customer experience and helping them achieve what it is that they want to get out of that transaction. So that took me up to Mirvac Hotels in Melbourne, and I had a great time with the hotel division there. And it was at a stage where Mirvac Development had actually bought the Como. So they were going through a transition of being taken over by Mirvac Developments, and I started meeting a few of the people in the real estate side of things, and my boss one day said to me, there's this event on at Key West, I can't go, can you go and represent the hotels? And I'm like, yeah, sure, no worries. So I turn up and potentially may have had one or too many champagnes, as you do at these networking events, and I ended up spending quite a bit of time with the director of sales for the residential team at Mirvac. And we had quite a bit of champagne, and I remember her yelling out to the CEO at the time, and it's like, Kev, we should give Leanne a job. And he's like, yeah, come in Monday, we'll give you a job. And it was all fun and games at the time. I woke up Sunday with a ripper hangover and rang them Monday and said, Jenny, I hope you felt as terrible as I did yesterday, but I think you offered me a job. And she said, yeah, come in. So I walked over to their offices and sat down and had a meeting with her, and they basically said, we love your energy. We love, hear great things. Would you like to come and join our real estate development team? So I resigned from hospitality and moved over into Mirvac Development, and basically started as a trainee, had no idea about real estate. And, one of the beautiful things that I look back on in my career is when you're buying or selling a property with Mirvac, it's off the plan, generally in Victoria at the time. So you're trying to get people to part with, $1-2 million off an A3 piece of paper on the promise that this apartment's going to be amazing or this house is going to be amazing. So I didn't realise my time there, I was certainly honing some skills that were quite unique. Where you're selling a service, really you're selling a dream, and it's very different to product selling where here's my pen, sell me this pen. You're selling an aspiration and a lifestyle. So I learnt a lot from my time there. And then, kind of jumped from real estate. From Mirvac, I got married, had kids, and took some time out, as you do in your 30s. And then that same sales director rang me and said, have you finished having children yet? Do you want to come back to work? And so, but at this stage, she wasn't at Mirvac. She was with Greg Hocking Real Estate, which was a local real estate agency. And they just opened up in Williamstown, which was where I was living. And she said, when you finish having your babies, come back. And mind you, I had a 2-year-old and a 3-month-old. And I'm like, I'm ready to come now. This is killing me. This mum job is terrible, right? So, I went and had a chat with Greg and Wayne Alley over in Williamstown, and they offered me the job. So I basically started being a local real estate agent. And again, I had no idea about local real estate, so I sort of dived in and had a great sort of 5 years with them, learning my suburb as you do in real estate. You know everyone, you walk down the street and, you're meeting 100-odd people that open for inspections every weekend, and it's your job to know who they are, where they live, are they buying, are they selling, what's their property motivation. So that kind of was a really great introduction into negotiation.
Yeah.
But also I realised I had this uncanny knack, and being female, I guess, in a very male-dominated industry, it was very helpful as well. But it was about creating the win-win. So you're going to buy a house, I'm going to sell you a house, you're going to pay a ridiculous amount of money above and beyond what you thought you're going to pay, and the vendor's going to be happy, but we're all going to walk away having a great experience, and you're going to love me at the end of it. And I don't know to this day how I do that, but the relationships I forged with my vendors and my buyers over the years, I could pick up the phone to any of them at any time and ask a favour or what have you. And, the way you manage your database and the way you have, relevant conversations with people and know what you're talking about and remember what they're looking for or when they're looking for, and you remember the kids' names and all that sort of thing. All those little things are so important in sales and building that trust and that relationship with people so that they will transact with you.
The trust is such a big piece, and balancing the vendor and the buyer, or the seller and the buyer, that's a skill in itself. I've gone through selling a house, and you kind of don't know whose team they're playing for, the salesperson. So to be able to balance that well, that's amazing.
Yeah, and it's incredible, right? And it taught me a lot about database management and how, sales is not just talking to people. You've got to be really good at your methodology and your administration in the background. And I think everyone listening has had that one real estate that calls them twice a year to check in, and they might do it for 5-10 years, right? You may not need to transact them. But my whole sales philosophy was really coming from my real estate time, and it's you've got to know me before you need me, and you've got to like me before you'll trust me, and the sale comes at the trust. So if you don't know who I am, or the agency or the business, or now in IT, if you don't know that company, you're not going to win the business, right? And then they know who you are, they know the business that you're in, and they have a need, whether it's transacting a house, a car, whatever, they have a need. So they'll come to you, but if they don't like you, they're not going to come to you, right? No. So that you're not going to get their business. So they know who you are, they have a need, but oh God, that guy was a douche and he didn't give me 2 seconds or didn't return my call or was arrogant last time we had an interaction. They don't like him, so he's not going to get the call up for the business. So my whole sales methodology from really hospitality, real estate, and now in IT is on that foundation of you've got to know me, you've got to need me, you've got to like me before you'll trust me. And I think that's where a lot of businesses, especially in IT, fail with their sales because they think hiring a salesperson is the silver bullet and it's just going to rain revenue for them. But it takes a lot of time to do. You do the sales marketing and the business marketing to get your brand out there, to understand your service offerings and offer that out to the market so people know what you can do and what you can help them with. And just be a good person, have fun while you're doing it so they like you.
Oh, absolutely. I think I I'm curious as to into breaking those three areas apart. The know me piece, or know about us as a business, I mean, that's very important. And I feel like that's sometimes, especially in the IT space, they have a website, they might do some dodgy socials, but that's about it.
Yeah.
You know, so it goes a lot to try and bring that understanding and knowledge of a business, doesn't it? And you've got to be, like you said, you've got to be strategic about it. So what are your tips in that space for an IT company potentially listening to go, hey, we want to try and improve that? What are the things they could potentially work on?
Well, I think there's two types of marketing. There's your company brand marketing, which is very important, and I don't think a lot of businesses spend the money or have the right team behind them to actually get their brand out in the marketplace. And there's also sales marketing, which is the tools that a salesperson needs to be successful. And that could be a podcast, data sheets, events, anything like that gets you in front of your customers and is relevant to what they are doing, and really promote you. You're a brand yourself. Every salesperson is a brand. So it's how you present yourself on LinkedIn, on socials, and also just picking up the phone and talking to people. It surprises me so much today in this, I guess, world of tech and, emails and what have you, that people are still so shy to pick up the phone and just have a chat and just understand, get to know the person on the other end and what their problems are, what their needs are, and then be relevant to them and be mindful. And I guess it's just that continuous conversation. Most salespeople get on the phone and try and sell you something, and if it doesn't happen, they move on to the next person, right? Whereas you really need to build a relationship and be relevant before someone will want to transact with you.
I totally agree. And it's a bit of a lost art, the telephone.
I love talking. You can hear my husky voice, right? I talk a lot, so my voice is failing me.
And I think it's so I spent 6 months 6 months heavy in an FMCG role. So sales, phone calls, metrics got a hit. And prior to that, I must admit, I never did any cold calling. I didn't do any other real sales from in an IT sense when I was running my IT company, and a little bit of sales, when I was helping build the other IT company up as well. But yeah, really not that hardcore sales. So it was really interesting going through the process of just making cold calls. Now FMCG, so it was sort of very much like fast moving consumer goods. You almost speak to people just to try and get a transaction, and that's what almost put me but did put me off it.
Yeah.
Because after about 4 months, I'm like, this is just, I'm not building relationships here.
Yeah.
I'm literally like, is your shelf empty? That's all I'm doing.
Yeah.
But I feel like some of the discipline and the actual activity, even at a reducer level, in the IT sales, just like you said, just pick up the phone, have a chat. How you doing? Just being aware of that, and that bit seems to be missing from a lot of the people I speak to and I see.
Well, it's interesting because my transition into IT was an interesting one because I was in real estate at the time, and I'd now divorced. I had 2 kids and, working weekends, which is really hard when you've got 2 young kids. And I was at a girlfriend's house for dinner, and she's asking me, how's it all going? I'm like, great, one of the top female agents in the West, blah, blah, blah. And you respond as you do. Everything's fine here. And then after me waffling on for about 20 minutes, she looked me in the eye and go, how are you really? And I'm like, oh my God, I'm dying. I'm working 7 days a week and, it's really hard. And I said to her, I wouldn't even know what my skill set could offer in the corporate world because I've lived in hospitality and then real estate. I've never really worked a corporate job before. So I wouldn't know how sales fits in to that world. And at that time, her husband was walking in with the barbecue tray of meat and caught the end of the conversation, and he looked at me, he goes, Leanne, you're an amazing salesperson. I can teach you the tech. We actually lost an account manager on Friday. The job's yours if you want it. Do you want a sausage? As he said, I'm like, yeah, yes to the meat. Did you just offer me a job? And so for the rest of the dinner, they were talking to me about tech and about IT. And of course, for anyone not in this space, you know, I had no idea what a firewall was, what a switch or a router, and I'm looking at them like just drinking wine going, I don't know what you're talking about kind of thing. And at the end of that dinner, as we were saying farewell, you know, my girlfriend grabbed my arm and looked at me and said, honey, you're a way better salesperson than I am. If I can do it, you can do it. You've got to do this. And so I think I was 38 at the time. On blind faith alone, I woke up the next day, walked into the agency I was working for and handed in my resignation. And they said, where are you going? What are you doing? I said, I don't know, an IT company. Don't ask me what I'm selling. I have no idea, you know. So that was pretty funny. And, you know, I walked in, that company was being bought by Telstra at the time. So I kind of came into Telstra under that acquisition. And, you know, I remember quite funnily walking in on my first day and standing at the bottom of the lifts at, you know, 242 exhibition, and I was with my girlfriend and standing there at the lifts, and this person comes up to me and said, oh my God, Leanne, what are you doing here? And I'm like, oh, g'day Sarah, how are you? Had a bit of a chat, blah, blah, blah. And she walks away and Joe says to me, you know, how do you know her? And I went, oh, I sold her a house. And so we get in the lift and we go up, you know, number of floors, doors open, a guy gets in. Leanne, what are you doing here? Oh, hi, Harry. How are you? You know, chat. And she looked at me, how do you know him? Oh, I sold him a house as well. So my worlds collided. And I think in that first probably 2 or 3 weeks of being in the city and in the Telstra building, I'd sold property or, you know, helped buy or sell to about 50 people within Telstra. And so that's when the penny dropped, and when, you know, my connections and my database, which beautifully was all in my mobile phone, you know, these were people that I could call and say, you know, hey, Rhea, and, you know, I sold your house. How's the wife and the kids going in Smith Street? I see you work at blah, blah company. Can you connect me with your IT manager? I'd love to have a chat. I'm now, you know, working for Telstra. And so I created so many meetings and opportunities with companies and connections based on a referral from someone that knew me, would recommend me internally, and I'd get the meeting, and then I'd sit there and go, okay, I need a tech person to come with me because I don't know what I'm talking about. So then I'd have a pre-sales engineer or someone come along, and, you know, what I loved about that transition into IT is I didn't know anything about tech. I wasn't technical. I said that my customers are like, you know, I'm 3 weeks in or, you know, 6 months in. I'm still learning the language here, but you come to me. If you need something, you come to me and I will find the right person to help you. And I think for the 5 years that I was there, I built up quite an extensive account base. And I think it was refreshing for customers, for me as a salesperson, knowing that they weren't going to be sold to, because I had no idea what I was talking about. Right? So, but they learnt to come to me, you know, when they had a problem, and I would find the right person that could solve that problem for them. And that, you know, has really kicked off my IT career in sales. And I think because I came in, you know, with no technical background, I wasn't an engineer that wanted to get into sales that knows the tech, and you just regurgitate, you know, vendor technology and you know, what have you. My conversations with customers was very different. It was like, tell me about your business. What are you working on? What does that mean? Oh, hang on, I don't know what that means. Can you explain that to me? And there was a vulnerability about it, and I was deeply curious as well. So, you know, I think when you're meeting and you talk about cold calling, a lot of them were meeting people and picking up the phone and saying, hey, can I come and have a chat with you? And I get the meeting, and then, you know, it's not even trying to sell them anything. It was just like, tell me about who you are. What's the business? What are you doing? What does that mean? What does IT look like for you? What are your challenges at the moment? And I learnt that from real estate, and I don't think that's taught enough, especially in vendor land, where they get on a call and just regurgitate, you know, we're in the Gartner quarter and no one cares, right? But to sit and actually just ask questions, and that's a skill I think a lot of salespeople don't have, is to just sit and listen. And we all hear, you know, 2 ears, 1 mouth, use them. No one actually knows what that means, and no one actually knows how to do that. And it's just asking questions of of the customer. And I do that in my sales training as well. You know, you do some role playing with salespeople and go, right, I don't want you to talk. I want you just to ask me questions for 10 minutes. And then at the end of that, you'll have enough information to go, you know what, I think I can help you. Or, you know, from what you've said, I think this would suit you better, or what have you. And it's really hard to change that perception and that mindset to actually just shut up and ask questions and listen, and then decide at the end whether you can help them or not. And it's that act of service, right? For me, sales is not selling a widget. It is building that connection and being of service and being valuable to someone. And that's really, really important.
No, that's so true. Like, it's just we so many times in the tech space you tend to go there trying to, you have a preset of solutions. You're just trying to sell those solutions without even understanding.
Square peg in a round hole,
yeah,
right?
It's just never works.
And I think sometimes in IT as well, that particular product or service is only one element of an entire network. And unless you understand what else is in that environment, you know, that product or service may not be a good fit for that customer, or you know, might not talk to each other or get the outcome that they need. So, you know, that's what I love about, you know, I left Telstra, I moved across to a small MSP in Richmond. Again, amazing business, but didn't have a sales team. So I worked with them for 3 years as their only salesperson and helped them build that business up. And at the end of that time, you know, I kind of had the realization that in sales you're bound by, you know, what the company you work for is selling. So I had to sell, you know, product A, B, and C kind of thing. And, you know, by doing that, I lost touch with a whole bunch of other customers that didn't have that flavor of product or service. And I got to the end of 3 years and saw an opportunity where there's a lot of small tech companies that are really good at what they do, but potentially can't afford, you know, the dollar value of a full-time salesperson, or have had really bad experiences with salespeople in the past. So I set about creating Tailor-Made Sales, which is basically a virtual BDM sales agency, and people can hire our services as a BDM, and you can scale up or scale down, use us as need, you know, for a short-term engagement or longer term. And, you know, what that means is that you're getting the skill of a BDM, which, don't get me started on salespeople all in one bucket. You've got account managers and you've got BDMs, and they're two very different breed of people.
Very different.
And I think that's an issue that I see across, you know, most businesses, is that they think, you know, a salesperson can do everything. And I can tell you right now, I'm a terrible account manager. I'm not attention to detail. You know, my admin's questionable, and I'm definitely the hunter. I love the high volume transaction, lots of conversations, uncovering problems, and then I'd hand it over to an account manager to then nurture, you know, that engagement and that customer and what have you. So I think there's multiple different roles within sales. So I think people that are out there wanting to build a sales team, there's some conversations to be had as to be really clear on what you want that role to be, and are you setting them up for success with your systems, processes, marketing, all that sort of thing. And the amount of businesses that I work with that don't have a sales operating model, a standard operating model. So, you know, a salesperson comes in and they've got no template or no, you know, list or process on going, what does good look like in this business, and how do you want me to engage, right? And I think that's where a lot of salespeople, unfortunately, are set up for failure. And, you know, because the business is not aware of what they should be doing in order to nurture that talent and get the right person in that right seat.
Absolutely. And I guess my question there, so much to unpack. I'm sitting here, I'm like, I got to go back, right? There's things at the start I want to talk about.
Sorry.
No, that's all right. But let's talk about that sales team, because I think it is, for me, that's something I find really fascinating, because I work with few MSPs myself in the EOS world, and I always see that. I feel like the commonality in that sales engine, even in the agency world, the sales agency just seems to be the one that always tends to get ignored. You know, we're always trying to do a bit of marketing, but marketing doesn't quite carry into the sales as well. But also that whole thing that you said there, you've got sort of account managers and you've got your BDMs and you're like the hunters, right? And sometimes, you put the wrong person there, and a good BDM just won't hunt.
Yeah.
It's just they can't do it.
Well, a BDM should be hunting. It's the account manager.
Sorry, good account manager
Yeah,
can't hunt.
yeah,
Yeah, sorry,
yeah.
that's what I meant.
Yeah.
They just can't, right? And vice versa, almost like you said, you just don't want to do the account management.
Yeah.
Right? But if you're looking at if it's a small IT company and all they could afford is one person, because sometimes that's the issue. What would you start with?
I definitely start with the BDM role,
Yeah.
right? Because, and I say this to a lot of people, nothing happens in any business until someone sells something.
Yes.
Right?
Just give me 30 seconds. If your business is serious about certification and trust, you need to check out ISO 365. They make ISO compliance simple, practical, and sustainable by building your ISO systems inside the Microsoft 365 tools you already use. No extra software, no hidden license fees, just real control and ownership of your compliance. I love the work that ISO 365 does because they don't just hand you templates and walk away. They become part of your team as virtual compliance officers, guiding you from gap assessment through to certification and long-term compliance. If you want compliance that actually works for your business and helps you win trust and new contracts, check out ISO 365. And now back to the show.
No one has a job. The finance people don't have a job. The engineers don't have a job. The driver, cleaner doesn't have a job until someone sells something and creates that revenue stream. So that's where I see a lot of companies fall down because they'll hire a salesperson, but it's actually an account manager, and they might nurture their existing customers really, really well, but they're not pulling through new logos or new business or having a very different conversation. And most people don't like cold calling. You touched on it before. Yeah. It's a skill to be able to pick up the phone and build a relationship with someone to the point that they want to do business with you, and it takes time. So you can't just expect a 4-week engagement, 6-week engagement with a BDM to suddenly rain opportunities, right? I work in 90-day sprints, right? So you've got to have a balance between your marketing, your sales, and a very clear ICP and who the business wants to target. And their ICP, what they think is the right target audience may not be the right target. So there's work to be done on defining your ICP as well. But I think, your BDM is your first port of call because they're going to go out and generate the opportunities, right? And they might pull in, 2, 3, 4, 5 meetings over a period of time and have 6, 7 opportunities on the table. Nothing's happened until someone buys something, right? Yeah. And they don't all turn into sales. So it's a numbers game. You've got to do the calls, you've got to do the meetings, you've got to build those connections to get the opportunities to then, put the business in front of them. Now, I might have been brilliant at my job and got all these meetings, but if you as the owner of the business are terrible or your engineer's woeful and doesn't know what he's talking about, well, you're not going to, the sales lost, right? But I've done my job in connecting you and bringing that opportunity to the table. So, there's a whole bunch we can unpack
There is.
in that space. But I think once you get a BDM in and you've got opportunities and proposals going out and deals being won, that's when it grows. Yeah. And then, you build your account management team, around that. Suddenly you've got 10, 20 customers that need nurturing. Then you put your account manager on. Then there's a lot of admin, obviously, that goes with all of that. So then you might put your sales support person on, and they are 3 very different people that create your sales team.
And you need all 3, don't you? And and I guess if you look at a BDM, what are you looking for? I guess what's an ideal week for a BDM? What would you see them do? Like, I'm from the repetition point of view, because I think that's the bit I'd love people to go like, okay, this is what you should expect from a BDM. But also, just before we go further, we sort of mentioned ICP. So maybe define what ICP means for people listening.
Yes. Ideal customer persona.
Yes, cool. So that's obviously you define that and you kind of target those. It's amazing how many people have an ICP but just don't target.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like, this is what we want. It's like, but we're going to go over here. It's like, okay. That
and I think that's, there's that we could do a whole nother session on ICP, to be honest with you. But it's, a lot of companies do the scattergun approach as well, and just whoever wants to meet and talk and transact, we're going to deal with them. And then suddenly they look at their services offerings and their customers and their all over the place.
Yeah.
And
It's so hard to rein it back in.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
really is. Yeah,
It is because, we're doing everything for everybody.
Yeah, and it's the same. I talk to people about, their ideal customer people and persona, I should say, and what industries are you serving? And they go, oh, we've got a bit of education, a bit of logistics, a bit of government, a bit of this, and I'm like, really? Like, let's narrow it down a bit. Like your service offering may touch a whole bunch of different verticals, but you probably just need to focus on one and do it well and become recognised and known in that particular area, and then branch out. So,
especially from the marketing point of view, sure,
Yeah.
right? Because you want to get in front of those personas. But if you're scattergunning, there's only so much LinkedIn post you can do to cover all those areas,
yeah,
right?
Exactly. And they all have slightly different needs as well. So,
that's it.
Yeah.
And tones and wording and all that. So so back to the BDM. So what are you sort of looking for that sort of activity level from a BDM to sort of get the best out of their time?
As a tech company wanting to hire a BDM, I think it's it's relationships. I always, when I'm talking to the BDMs that are wanting to join my team, it's tell me about your network. Who do you know? Give me an example of a great opportunity that you've had, or how did you handle that, and how do you get in front of your customers? What are you doing to get amongst where your customers are? And it's knowing you when you're buying a salesperson or hiring a salesperson, it's yes for their skill, but you're also buying the connections. Yeah. And this is, people love to hate salespeople and love not to pay salespeople, and it's really challenging to have a company, even in my job business where I'm putting a proposal out for a BDM service and, they don't see value, or they're nervous about spending the money because they're not going to, unsure of the return. And I had a conversation with someone yesterday, a potential client, and we were talking about, the call sessions and, numbers of expectations of calls and meetings and connects and things like that. And I said, it's really hard because you can't put numbers on these things as much as everyone loves to put numbers and KPIs around things. I said, if you gave me a list of 20 people right now and I pick up the phone and I call them, I could leave 20 voicemails and I'm done in, a couple of hours or an hour or so. But if I connect with all 20, I'm talking the whole day. Yeah. Like, I'm having a 10, 15, 20 minute, potentially longer
and the
conversation with each of those people. So it's quality over quantity. And that's why we try and, I guess if we have to give numbers out, it's more about the connections that you make. I've made 100 calls, but I only connected with 5. Right? People in this day and age, with all this AI on the Androids and iPhones now can screen calls. If they don't know you and they're going, who's this cold caller or this person I don't know ringing me, they're not going to take your call. So, there's the conversion of actually having conversations, is challenging, I think, for a lot of salespeople at the moment. But also that's where you've got to take different approaches and use your network on LinkedIn. And if I'm trying to get in front of a particular customer or persona within a business, I'll go to LinkedIn and I'll see who in my network knows them, where's the connection, and go, hey, Rayanne, I see you know Bill Smith. Are you able to do an introduction for me? And this is why I want to talk to them. And most people are generous enough and who know me know what I do and go, oh yeah, you'd be great for that business or whatever, and do the introduction, and then they'll take my call, and then we have that conversation. So, there's, if you've got a set allocated amount of time per day for your BDM service that you're expecting calls from, a lot of that could just be done in research and connections and setting it up for the call, as opposed to how many calls have you done today, kind of thing. So people don't understand there's so much work and planning. You don't just pick up the phone and call people. You're like, there's probably 6 hours of work to be done on that list to know who they are, is their phone and email correct, who do they know that I know, what's, looking at LinkedIn, what's important to their business at the moment, what are they talking about socially, so that when I do have a conversation with you, it's relevant to them. Right? And not necessarily about the product or service I'm representing, but it's like, I understand you. I've researched you. I know, what you're interested in, and I show, exactly. Yeah. And then you can have a great conversation with people. So
that is such a good tip because it's just, I mean, I sort of instinctively did that even in the FMCG space. Like you would go to their socials and have a look, but LinkedIn gives you so much. You can like company structures, who's doing what, who's active, and to not lean on that.
Yeah.
It just makes no sense. And I mean, how powerful has, I mean, couple things with LinkedIn. I find there seems to be a lot of automation stuff happening.
Oh, it's terrible. It drives me nuts.
Right. And that's not only just in the posting, but also the reach out, like Hey Reach, for example.
Don't get me started on AI in sales, Rayan. That's a whole different conversation. Pick up the phone, people. Call your customer.
Well, I think that's the, I mean, it's good. I think there's some automation from a connecting point of view, but I think you still need, like you said, pick up the phone. But I just find like there's just too much AI stuff happening in LinkedIn. People are time poor and they're like, oh, we'll pay for this service. They're going to go connect with this pool of people. We'll see what happens.
And I'm pushing 50 this month, and it comes back to good old fashioned service, right? You pick up the phone and talk to people, and
also show up where they are, right? Like like
be relevant.
If you are
timely
after an industry, what events are happening?
Yeah.
That's kind of the way you show up. So so that's, you sort of, like you said, you've got to nurture that list to make sure you go. And then you mentioned, managing your database or curating your database, and it's all on your phone. So just for those listening, what are your tips for that? Like, I mean, the whole idea of people knowing people's kids' names, birthdays, potentially, where they work, where it is. Yeah. Do you literally just write all that stuff in notes, or are you a contact person? Where do you put your stuff?
I am such a database nerd. It's not funny. I should be sponsored by HubSpot, I think, because I absolutely love HubSpot. Yeah. But for many, many reasons, but we won't go into that. But I think, one of the challenges every business has, big and small, is their quality of data that they capture. And you might have a lead coming through a website. I actually find this, sidestep for a minute. I do this for sport, right? If everyone's got websites, and I am notorious and find this fun in my weird way of going in and leaving my name and number and details and my request for why I want to talk to them on their web form. No one ever calls you back. Yeah. Very, very rarely, whether it's a gardener, whether it's a tech service provider, whether it just, why have a contact form on your website if you're not going to reach out to the customer that is on your website and he's asking you a question and wanting to contact you? It drives me insane. So I do a lot of work with companies around, that kind of, where does that information go when it lands and who is responsible? And it needs to be 12 hours or less, really, that someone needs to be on the phone and picking up that lead and having a conversation.
You're getting a warm lead.
Oh my God, it's right. I've only ever had one tech company ever ring me within sort of 10 minutes. And I'm happy to name them. It was Aussie Broadband. And it blew me away. And I was like, high five to you, salesperson. Like, you have systems and processes working in the back end. And, they're the only tech company that have ever picked up a lead off a website and actually called the customer. And I was blown away. I was so excited when they rang me. So I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done, in knowing where the leads go and then who's responsible to follow them up, really. I'm a big believer, and this is quite sort of controversial, I guess, in the world of tech databases and things like that. I'm a firm believer that you have your Salesforce or your HubSpot or your Pipedrive or whatever it is you're using for your business. It integrates with all your service delivery and tickets and all that sort of stuff. That is for customers only, right? That is your customer sales database. When they have done a transaction with you and you've onboarded them as a customer, and then you've got all the accounting APIs and integrations, that is in there. Now, you might only have 50, 100, 200, 500, whatever. That is your business sales database. Your prospecting database is a completely different system. They can still talk to each other, but I'm a big believer in that you could have 12,000 people in your prospect database, right? You're not going to do business with all of them. But if you want to do marketing and events and newsletters and reach out, because don't forget, we're back at they've got to know you.
Yeah.
So your prospect database needs to know you. So what activities are you doing to reach those, 1,000, 10,000, however many thousands of people that you want to do business with? That's the platform that you use for your sales and marketing to reach out to those people. And they will engage, right? And then we have a prospecting pipeline. It's a lead. It's become a prospect. I've had a conversation with you. There's a meeting scheduled. We've had a meeting. There's an opportunity on the table. The opportunity's nurtured. And when it's won, it goes into the sales database and they're onboarded as a customer, right? Two very, very different pools of people and two very different ways that you talk to them and market to them and nurture them. And I haven't seen anyone do that well.
Okay. And is that, I'm assuming you prefer HubSpot for the prospecting?
Yeah, I do. And the reason for that, and it's contentious and people can argue and over a beer with me anytime about databases. I love it because, as much of these technologies and these platforms are built, Salesforce is amazing as well. I find it very clunky from a salesperson's perspective because I'm not at a desk. I'm not sitting at my computer, 8 hours a day. And what I love about the CRMs that get it right, which is why I love HubSpot so much, is, it's an app on my phone. I can call every outbound call that we do in TaylorMade Sales is done through our CRM app, and it's recorded, it's logged. I can make the call. I hang up from the call. It pops up with a note saying, what do you know? And it could be left message or had a great chat about blah, blah, blah. Gives me an option to follow it up. I'm going to follow it up in the next day, the week, 3 months from now, whatever. I set that task and I forget about it. It's now logged in my system and it will remind me on the day that I've scheduled it to remind me, oh yeah, I need to follow that up. And so the follow-up is where a lot of salespeople fall over many, many times. I think most people, the stats are they tried calling twice and then that's it. But for people to know you, you've got to be consistent in your conversation with them and call when you say you're going to call.
Oh, God.
Right? It's not hard.
It's not
but
hard.
When you're dealing with hundreds and hundreds of calls and customers and conversations, like I couldn't tell you what I did yesterday, Rayan, let alone, but I know it's logged and I've got that methodology, I've got that system in place that not much falls through the cracks.
Yeah.
And so on that day, you look at your task list, you do the calls, you follow, oh yeah, that's right, I was meant to do that, that and that. You do it, you're doing it at the time that you said you were going to do it. You've had the call when you said you were going to do it. And that blows people's minds, and it's really, really simple stuff, right?
That's the thing. I must admit, and the art's in the follow-up.
Oh,
right? It's just
absolutely.
Basically, everything falls over if you don't call when you're going to call or if you don't call at all.
Yeah, but database mining is an interesting topic to unpack as well for people that are listening that have a database and, are just capturing names, numbers, what have you. Database mining is really powerful, and this was one thing I learnt from my real estate days. When we do an event or there's an RSVP or the form that someone's filling in to drop something into our database or RSVP for something, we ask them a bunch of questions, and it's not cumbersome. It's like, how do you like your coffee? What sports do you like? What events do you like? We do a lot of events. Do you like ballet, Grand Prix, tennis, golf, whatever. So they tick the box on what they like. What tech's of interest to you at the moment? They've got various things that they can comment on or tick boxes or what have you, and that comes into our database. Now, if you said to me, 2 years ago when we caught up that you love a short black with one sugar, that goes in my database. And the next time we have a meeting, I'm rocking out with a short black with one sugar and I sit down with you, and every time the customer looks at me and goes, oh my God, you remember my coffee, right? It's simple things that, you just do stuff. It shows you care. And that was a real estate thing we learnt. We did a lot of that because you're having lots of coffee catch-ups with buyers and sellers around your suburbs. So, I would always capture how my clients like their coffee, or ask them inadvertently, or even, you know, who do you barrack in the footy? Oh, I barrack for Geelong. Great, amazing. That gets logged in there. And I'm a Hawthorn supporter, so next time Hawthorn beats Geelong, I'm just going through my database for fun and calling all the Geelong supporters going, how was the game on Saturday? You know, oh, bugger off, Leanne, you know.
Yeah.
But it's just another reason to have a conversation with someone and be a person and be a human and be a good human and have a bit of fun. It's not all about business all the time. So I think you can have a lot of fun with your database in actually pulling through, you know, interesting, quirky things that as a salesperson you can use to, you know, really try and build those connections with people. So,
And that's those little 1%ers, isn't it? That really gets, I guess, shows you care, but then also gets, like you said, people you're walking in with their coffee and they're like, oh, you remembered.
Yeah.
And you know, we met.
It's the little things.
Yeah.
I love the, you know, the football and the sports one is a favourite of mine because, you know, often you get vendors or partners or what have you in the tech industry that will ring and go, hey, I've got, you know, 2 tickets to, you know, Collingwood, St Kilda in our corporate box. Do you know anyone that would like to come? Now, you know, I don't know many salespeople that can go straight to their CRM and do a search on the football team field and go, oh, yeah, I've got 20 people that barrack for Collingwood. Who do I, you know, and you ring them. Hey, Rayan, how you going? Haven't spoken to you for a while. I've got a ticket to the Collingwood game on the weekend in the blah, blah box. Do you want to come with me? Hell yeah, I'm coming, you know. And then you're just having time one-on-one with that customer or in a networking environment or what have you. And you're spending time with them.
You, I love everything you've said, and I love it. I guess I'm looking at this in a different lens. Okay, that's great, and you've sort of nailed it. The follow up, the database, just pick up the phone, all that stuff. How do you find that? How do you find getting that discipline into an existing team?
Yeah, that's tricky.
Because you almost have to be wired, right, to a certain degree.
You've got to get the buy-in, right? And it's not me coming in telling them what they should be doing. It's sitting around with the sales team going, let's whiteboard some ideas, you know, what's good for you, what works for you, what information do you think you should be asking, or, you know, just building it out and getting the team's involvement in that. You know, some people might feel weird asking someone, what coffee do you have? Or, you know, it's that just next step of not thinking to actually capture that information. And I guess that's just my curious mind that I love, you know, collecting data on people. I know that sounds weird, but, you know, it's just you've got to have that mindset of not what can I use, because it's not a manipulative kind of thing, but it's what is this person telling me in this conversation about them that I need to remember, because I forget. I speak to so many people, you know, I forget, that I need to jot down to go next time I speak to them, you know, I'm going to bring that up, or I can, you know, find out some information about that or whatever. And so it's a mindset shift, but it's also, if you've ever read James Clear, Atomic Habits, one of my favorite books, it's just doing the 1%ers and doing them well. You don't have to do it all at the same time, but just pick something that you're going to add into your daily routine and your daily conversation, and do that for a month, and then it's ingrained as a habit, and then you add the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. But again, it comes back to the company and being clear on, you know, what data they want out of their database as well, you know, and I could talk forever about it. I love it.
Well, it's and I think you nailed it with that bit where don't change everything at once, you know, add that one thing and then add the next thing once you've got it embedded. It's such a, that goes for anything, any sort of habit you want to try and instill, right?
Yeah. And you know, salespeople, it's hard, right? Because, you know, a lot of salespeople have been doing this job for a very long time, and you know, there's a lot of insecurity in salespeople, right? There's that smoke and mirrors and the bullshit factor, and you know, talk the talk, and you know, outwardly present to the world that they're amazing and what have you. But you're only as good as your last sale, and you know, I think there's a lot to be learnt in those moments where you don't get the sale. And again, coming back to real estate, this is something that you do very, very well. So if I was presenting to you about selling your house and I didn't get the listing for whatever reason, I would always ring up and say, thank you so much for the opportunity. You know, I'd love to know, you know, why you went with blah, blah, you know. And 9 times out of 10, it was a relationship.
Yeah.
Right? The dads play soccer together or something like that. And I'm like, oh God, if I'd known that going in, I wouldn't have wasted my time, because you can't break a relationship, right? But, and that's a key point there as well. That's why they're so powerful. But, you know, I would always say, well, you know, fantastic, good luck. And, you know, I would drive past the week later and I'd see you board up and you've got an auction in 4 weeks' time. I would put that note in my calendar, in my diary or in my CRM. It would remind me the day before that you've got an auction tomorrow. I would ring you, hey Rayanne, the auction tomorrow, wishing you all the best. I hope it goes well. How are you feeling about your campaign? How's it gone so far? The amount of information you get from it, oh my God, it's been terrible, we've had no groups through and the agent's terrible and whatever, you go, oh my God, okay, that's not great. Or so there could be an opportunity for me to, you know, follow it up if they didn't make this, or they could go, you know what, it's going really well, we've got X contracts out, we're feeling really confident. Like, great, if you have any questions or whatever, I'm always here to help you, so best of luck tomorrow. And then you see whether there's a sold sign up or not a sold sign up, right? And you know, if there was a sold sign, I'd drop some champagne in and go, you know, congratulations, really excited for you, blah, blah, blah. But I'm doing it not because that's the process. I'm doing it because I actually care and I'm passionate about.
But that's the key piece, right? I think that the care factor. Like if you
show you care,
I think that's the bit that almost is hard to make a habit. Because if you don't genuinely care about people.
And that's where I think salespeople do certain things and it's false, and the person receiving that information or whatever, you know, the vibes screaming, you know, it's not genuine. So you're only going to do that if you're really comfortable and genuine and, you know, really want to do it. And so it's the same with IT. I mean, how many salespeople have lost, you know, a proposal or an opportunity, you know, firewalls, you know, someone's bought Palo over Fortinet or whatever. You know, I don't know any salesperson that then picks up the phone 6 months later and go, you know, hey, Rayanne, you must have your firewalls installed now. Just want to see how it's all going. Again, the customer's going to go, oh, it was amazing. It's all up and running. Thanks so much for checking in. I really appreciate it, you know. Or it was terrible. They're still not installed and they, you know, blah, blah, blah. And then there's an opportunity to get back in front of that customer and go, right, well, I can't help you because we only deal in this flavor, but can I recommend you talk to this person or this person? And I will always try and help them in that situation. It's not always about the sale. It's about, you know, how you help people. And one of my favorite sayings in sales, it's not what you say and it's not what you do. It's how you make people feel that they remember. And, you know, those genuine acts of kindness and support and care, you know, I didn't win the sale that time, but I guarantee the next time I'm still going to have a seat at the table and they'll probably think twice about going somewhere else because I'm giving them that care and service. And that's takes time to build through genuine connections. And I think that's, you know, where my CRM, coming back to the database, you know, you have to capture that and log that because, you know, I'm an ADHD brain. I forget what I did 10 seconds ago. If I don't have that very solid sales methodology and process supporting me in what I do, then I do forget things and I do forget to call or I do forget to do something that I promised that I'd do. And, you know, that is a process and a method that takes time. And going back to your question about salespeople, you know, often I'm working with people that have been in the industry a long time and no one likes to be told as a salesperson, you know, you're not doing something right or to do something differently or what have you. Most people are resistant to change in that space as well. But I think there's that because it's that insecurity that I really don't know what I'm doing and someone's going to find me out one day that I'm a terrible salesperson. Well, no one's a terrible salesperson. You can always strive to be better. You've just got to, you know, surround yourself with people that are better than you and be curious and ask questions. And, you know, I had that example when I was back in at Telstra and I walked out of that business when I left with 200 accounts. Now, that's ridiculous, right? That's unheard of in most businesses to be able to touch that many accounts and do it well, when most account managers have, 10, 20 or 30 accounts on their list. And, it always blew my mind that no one ever asked me how I did it. And it wasn't until my previous role, the one after Telstra, that the CEO and owner did ask me one day, how do you do it? And I went, really glad you asked. And it's as simple as there's 20 business days in a month, Monday to Friday times 4. If I want to reach 200 accounts, I'm calling 10 people a day. And that's all I do. Is first thing I do in the morning, I have my list of 200 accounts broken down into 20, Monday to Friday times 4. And one of my, habits, I guess, that I get into is I pick up the phone 10 calls before 10, right? It's a real estate thing as well. But if I make my 10 calls, and they don't have to connect, it's just a voicemail. Hey, Ryan, how you going? It's Leanne calling. Just want to check in, see what cool things you're doing. Give me a call back if you need me. Otherwise, I'll chat to you next month. And you hang up and you do it month after month after month. And by the end of the year, from Feb to November, I've called you 10 times. Now, it's very unusual in a 12-month period that you haven't called me back or that we haven't had a conversation at some point. So it's, again, going back to that database management and managing, your prospects and your customers you want to work with, and being consistent and having a process, which most people don't have. So if you call 10 people a day, at the end of the month, I've called 200 accounts, and I will do it again in March and in April and in May. And business comes from that. How does it not? So simple structure, database, be a good person, pick up the phone and talk to people, have fun.
And discipline.
I find it pretty easy, but I can't believe how people find sales hard.
10 before 10, guys. What do you guys do?
Yeah. Well, then the rest of the day is free. I can get on to do with what I need to do. But I know I've called my 10 customers with 10 people. Yeah.
Amazing. I thought this was going to be a real tech sales podcast. Well, this is just sales.
It's just sales,
everything you need to do to be good in sales.
Yeah. Well, it's transferable skill, right?
Oh, I mean, clearly. Like, that's exactly what you've done, right?
And that's actually, tying it back into tech is, people go out for technical account managers or tech salespeople, and I often sit there and go, why don't you call someone in real estate or in insurance or a pharmaceutical salesperson? It's about the person, it's about their connections, and it's about their process. And I think in interviews with salespeople, if anyone is interviewing salespeople at the moment, ask them to demonstrate what is your sales process. And I guarantee you 9 times out of 10, they'll look at you blankly and go, what? I just pick up the phone and call people, or whatever. So, asking a salesperson what is their process and methodology, the good ones will tell you because they know, because they do it, they live and breathe it. The not so good ones perhaps won't be able to answer that question. So.
That's a good question. Now, you come in with tailor-made sales. So it's fractional.
Virtual sales as a service. So
talk me through what you do.
Yeah, so what we do is, mainly, virtual BDM. So we've got a virtual BDM service, which is 2 hours a day, 5 days a week for as many weeks. And I do that because I don't care what anyone says, and these poor SDRs and BDRs that are working for these, large companies and lead generation companies that are grilled on how many calls you make in a day. I love talking on the phone, but 8 hours of calls, you're exhausted and you're not having good conversations by the end of the day. So we break it down into 2 hours, and we do it daily so that there's that consistency of follow-up and return calls and things like that. So if you have a very clear, good database, clean data, targeted approach, it's your 2 hours of calls, there's your 10 calls a day. There's no reason that BDM's not reaching 200 accounts in a month, right? And any client that works with us, would have 50 to 100 to 200 target accounts that they want to, and this is how we're going to do it. 2 hours of calls a day, LinkedIn, all that kind of stuff, and you're only paying your salesperson then for 2 hours a day, right? We're virtual. We're fractional, we're remote, so you're not having to spend the salary and the wage and all the bells and whistles that goes with it. And if it works, great, we keep going. If you're not happy or what have you, or then it stops. So, yeah.
Okay. And for those organizations or IT companies in this state in this scenario that don't have the list. They don't have a good list.
Yep, we can help them with that. Yeah.
Okay.
I've got a database coordinator who's an absolute gem, and there's not anyone she can't find generally. So, so we can help pull those lists together. And I say to people, you know, I'm an expensive resource, you know, on a significant hourly rate to be sitting here doing your admin, right? So I've got a database coordinator that does that. We also have a fractional sales director, and a fractional CRO, a growth revenue officer, because these are also people and skills that someone might have a sales team already, but you're the owner of the business, like especially in MSP, right? You're the owner of the business, you're doing everything, you're wearing multiple hats. You know, you're probably not doing it all of them very well. So, you know, we have a fractional sales director role where that person will come in on a retainer each month and manage your team and keep them accountable in sales meetings for their calls and their pipeline and report back to the SLT on how sales is going. The Chief Revenue Officer is a great one as well, because that's for companies that want to grow. Everyone wants to grow, but they don't know how. And is it putting on a BDM and, you know, getting out and getting new logos? Yeah, but there's also a bit of thought strategy behind that as well, and the marketing as well. So we have a Chief Revenue Officer as a service that can go in and help build that strategy. And that strategy might involve a virtual BDM or a salesperson, or it might be, you know, looking at their existing sales team and making sure the right person's in the right seat and doing a bit of training and things like that. I've seen it so many times that, you know, especially in the last 2 years where IT has been really tough, right? It's been a tough market. Coming out of COVID, everyone's purse strings are tightened. People are not spending. Customers were certainly not spending. And even a simple, you know, $10,000 sale would take 6 months, which, you know, was frustrating for a lot of the salespeople. But also I saw a really horrible thing in that time where companies were just getting rid of their salespeople. Oh, you're not performing, we're going to sack you. And I'm like, So there was so many salespeople getting let go over that time. And it's like, well, you know, it's the market, firstly, but it's also an opportunity to do some sales training at that time, and actually, you know, the order takers of the world where sales would just fall in their lap because the nature of the market and people are transacting and everything's great. Anyone can look good in a good market. And going back again, to the real estate model, you know, I would absolutely love a downturn market in real estate, because it sorts out the boys from the men, or the girls from the men in this case, because in a tough economic market in real estate, agencies will close. You know, salespeople are on commission only; they will struggle, but the good agents will always thrive, and that's where I went through quite a few, you know, recessions and what have you, interest rate rises and all those sort of things, and it's the salesperson that has the relationships, that has built up a really strong foundation of customers, that will always transact. And I saw it the last 2 years in IT as well, and I saw a lot of salespeople getting let go, but I also saw a handful of salespeople really fly, because business still needed to be done, right?
Yeah.
And it was the ones that were consistent, kept in contact. There was a no, there was a need, there was trust. They got the business. And I've done many deals in my time where it's not even gone to 3 quote, nothing. It's just we're just doing business with you, and they've been sizable deals as well, which is great. And it's a credit to me, and then it's a credit to the relationship that you have with those customers, that you can do these things in a tough market. So
it's again a lot to unpack in that section. I must admit, one thing I want to say: your database coordinator, I need to know how well because she's probably good. If she's working for you, she's going to be an absolute gun.
You can't have it.
But also, I think, just the whole, you know, consistency piece was amazing. Now, if people want to get in touch with you,
yes,
what's the best way?
Call me.
If you haven't,
No, absolutely. My website, tailormadesales.com.au. There is a book me button down the bottom, so I have people drop meetings in my calendar all the time. It's a crazy calendar, so just throw a time in that suits, and I will always turn up and have a chat. Yeah, excellent. You never know what the next conversation is going to bring. They can reach out on LinkedIn. It's Leanne Taylor, and TaylorMade Sales is on there as well. And you going back to what you were talking about LinkedIn before, anyone that connects with me on LinkedIn, you know, outside of the obvious AI generated spam, which annoys everyone, you know, people that connect and pop a little message in with their genuine intent of, oh, I see you doing this, or someone recommended that I reach out to you, you know, I will always reply. And that information, I take that URL, I guess, their LinkedIn link, and I send it to my database coordinator. I said, can you please add it in, and can you please schedule for me to call them, you know, within the day or 2 days. And so, you know, you get so many, you know, contacts and connects on LinkedIn. It's just insane. Most people go connect and then that's it, right? There's no further conversation, or they'll just connect and you hear nothing, or what have you. For me, it's a medium of getting to know someone, and if you connect with me, you'll always get a reply, and it goes into my database as you've reached out to me for some reason. I'll see who else we know in common, and you'll get a call from me in the next couple of days going, hey, we connected, how can I help you? And I always lead with, how can I help you? It's, what do you need? You know, what do you want? How can I help?
That's awesome.
And I'll either help, or I will point you in the right direction of someone else that can, or connect you with someone. And there's a book called Super Connectors, and I absolutely love it. And that's really what sales is. You've got to be a super connector.
Oh, unreal. One thing I did think about, for the salespeople out there listening who, you know, maybe the business doesn't want to bring you in, but do you do any mentoring or coaching of individual?
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. I've got a sales training section on the website, so people can jump in there. I've actually released my own sales journal as well, which is more like a diary, I guess you could say, with no dates. And it's basically what I was talking about your 10 calls a day. There's a bit of info at the front as to how to break down your customer list, how to break down your target list, and then just fill in the journal, right? Put your 10 calls in times 20 days and just pick up the phone and start calling. So yeah, that's for sale, I think through Amazon or something like that. But yeah, I do one-on-one training and coaching as well. So it's really hard for salespeople. I don't find a lot of salespeople want to pay for their own personal development, which blows my mind. You know, I've always had a sales coach. I've had 2 or 3 in my career over real estate and in IT, and you know, you get a lot out of sales coaching and mentoring. So, you know, you've got to remember though that person's giving you their time. So it's not necessarily free, but if you're willing to invest in yourself, that person will bend over backwards to help you succeed. So,
Leanne, thank you so much for coming on. That was jam-packed. We compressed so much into that conversation, but there's so much more to unpack. But thanks so much. And look, I learned a lot today, and I think there's so much people to learn from that, just sales in general. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. You know, I could talk forever about this, so we might need a part 2.
Yeah, well, we'll get you back.
Yeah, thanks so much, Rayanne.
Thanks, Leanne.
Thank
See ya.